Would you please welcome our mayor, Rick Rogers.
All right, first off, I'd just like to start. Many of you know that I mentioned this to a couple on the way in, but many of you know that I grew up in Honolulu. Actually grew up very close to the location where the 2 police officers were shot over the weekend. So if we could just start with a moment of silence for those and for those who lost their lives. Thank you. All right. Customarily I don't read from prepared statements, but today I thought, given where we currently are, I thought that I would be more accurate and potentially more concise if I read these. All right. First off, to the City Club, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and to the audience, thank you for being here. And by being here, you show that you care. As Mike mentioned, this past year has been anything but dull. Almost since the day I took office, actually for those who are counting, it was on January 7th of 2019, or 379 days ago. The city of Newberg is embroiled in lawsuits, investigations, allegations, and counter-allegations, mainly among top-level staff. While I began my term thinking I and the rest of the council would be focused on roads, pipes, plans, and safety, we have instead been forced to address traumatic personnel issues that have earned City Hall the published characterization of being a place of chaos, turmoil, animosity, discrimination, retaliation, harassment, sexual harassment, infighting, and dysfunction. As an aside, I was here last night for the MLK celebration. I don't know how many of you were, but had to admit to that crowd that it was that we lost a case for discrimination in hiring. What I say and what I mention here, the issues are real, the problems are certain and debilitating. The troubles must stop. The problems aren't new. We have taken steps to this point. However, I've said it before and I will say it again. These troubles do not define all city employees or this community. One thing I've clearly learned over the past year is that every day, city employees, your employees, go to work with the intent of doing the best they can by the residents of Newberg. Behind me on the screen are 57 slides that will be playing while I speak, if I can figure out how to get them to go. This is Lacey Dycraft, who I was going to thank later, but here she is now. She's our community engagement specialist. All right. These slides will be playing as I speak. In these slides are just some of the accomplishments that departments have provided, listing last year's activities. Again, thanks to Lacey and to the leadership team who provided these. Accomplishments in spite of chaos might well be the title of this talk. Even though City Hall found itself on the front pages of the Newberg Graphic, the News Register, and the Oregonian, employees still went to work. Permits were still issued, sewage was still treated, roads and sidewalks were still improved, our streets were still patrolled. If you want to see the glass half full, imagine what can and will be accomplished in the absence of these troubles. I must look at things this way as a half a full way, or to be honest with you, going into City Hall would be excruciatingly difficult. Over the past year, I've thought quite a bit about the origin of our personnel difficulties. In reviewing the history, there is one single issue that to me points to the root cause of the problems. Since 2012, or over the past 8 years, the City of Newberg, as Mike mentioned, has had 8 city managers. I'm going to say that again. In 8 years, 8 city managers. Some of you will undoubtedly recall, and please note that that's recall, not recall. But the sequence went something like this. Dan Denichich, Lee Elliott, Jackie Betts, Terry Marr, Steve Rhodes, Joe Handy, Matt Zook, and David Klein. 3 of these were permanent hires. 2 honestly went down in flames. 1 retired, and 5 were interim. At this point, I really need a special thanks to Matt Zook, our finance director, for stepping in during these trying times, and a huge thank you to David Klein, our interim city manager, who retired from the City of Independence. To fully understand the upheaval a lack of continuity generates, it is important to understand the council-manager form of government. This form of government is the most prevalent in Oregon. In fact, there's only 3 communities that use other forms. You could probably guess Portland, Beaverton's another, and oddly enough, the 3rd is our neighbors in Aurora, but nonetheless. In this municipal government model, the mayor and the city council are elected by the public, by you, to make decisions on the public's behalf. The single most decision that the council makes is the hiring of a city manager. If the council is the board of directors, and in that case that I'm the chairman of the board of directors, then the city manager is the chief executive officer. I may have you note that the electeds generally are not paid. The city manager tends to be fairly well compensated. And it's for a good reason. Nearly all of the city's employees, we have 130 full-time, 20 part-time, for a total full-time equivalent of 136. Nearly all of those report to the city manager. The chief of police and the directors of human resources, information technology, library, finance, public works, and community development all report to the city manager. The city manager is also the chief budget officer for the city. He or she prepares the $115 million budget message for adoption. Imagine what happens in times of great turnover in the top position. Now, we might as well have hung an under new management sign permanently on the front door of City Hall. It does not take a PhD in management science to know that a revolving door of CEOs is not the proverbial recipe for municipal or managerial success. An absence, in my mind, of consistent leadership can and has resulted in tension, dysfunction, chaos, headlines, and lawsuits. All right, that's it. Y'all get the idea about the troubles. Sorry to borrow the reference from Northern Iowa, but I promised that this talk would focus on accomplishments in spite of chaos. So here are just a few of the 57 slides that appear behind me. Number 4, community development, community visioning. This vast undertaking, known as Newberg, set your goals for the future of this community. Number 13, community development, building, conducted over 4,500 inspections during the course of the year. Number 16, public works engineering. $1.4 million were spent on pavement preservation projects. Number 23, public works water treatment. Almost 29 million gallons of reused water was sent to the golf course. Number 34, public works maintenance responded to 147 emergency calls. And mind you, 70 of those were on off hours or weekends. The Newberg Dundee Police Department, number 36, responded to 35,000 calls for service in the course of the year. And the library, over 129,000 library visitors walked through the doors, or an average of 113 per hour open. Now, in addition to department accomplishments, there were some accomplishments and recognition that individual staff received that should be noted again. Number 33, Public Works employees Leo French-Pinzon and Brian Faulhaber won the Everyday Hero Awards from the Oregon chapter of the American Public Works Association. They did it for their duty, their dedication, and actually their love of this community. Number 43, Newberg Dundee police officers were recognized by their peers at the Oregon Peace Officers Association annual awards ceremony. Included were Distinguished Service Award to Officer Steve Schoening, Medal of Valor to Officer Nathan James, Life-Saving Awards to Officers Tom Sattler, Dan Faust, Justin Coughlin, Ariel Siqueiros, Jeremy Pilon, and Sergeant Mark Cook and Captain Jeff Kosmicki. By department, number 51, Finance received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Number 35, the Newberg Dundee Police Department was named the 2019 Safest City in Oregon by backgroundchecks.org based on FBI crime data. These are just some of the 2019 accomplishments of the dedicated staff and volunteers at the City of Newberg. That was a mere 11 of 57 slides. Beyond these, there are other indicators that give me hope even in these times of troubles. 37 individual applications were received for the city manager position. 5 applications were recently received for a vacancy on the council's District 5 position. 6 applications were received for the District 2 council position, which we'll be discussing at council tonight. If y'all aren't doing anything, come on by. And all but one spot on a single city committee is currently available. And again, here's an unabashed pitch. That's traffic safety. If you're interested, contact me afterwards. This interest and this community involvement shows me that Newberg has a bright future, that people, even from people outside our community, are willing to invest. One other note, without you, the public, we have nothing. You are our bosses. In the same analogy, you are the shareholders in this corporation. You provide the input that allows us to make the decisions necessary to be the best community we can be. As a case in point, it takes nearly 100 individual volunteers, many of whom are actually in this room, to staff 8 standing and a varying number of ad hoc citizen committees. Without this involvement, we simply cannot function. So where now? One of the greatest accomplishments of the past year was actually the beginning of this year. On January 6, 2020, we hired Dan Weinheimer as our next city manager. We believe Dan has the experience, demeanor, and skill to lead us past the troubles and into a very bright future. As with all hires, we will only know if Dan fits the city and if the city fits Dan only once he's begun. He starts February 24th. So it is my hope that you will welcome Dan and his family wholeheartedly to our community, and that this community, city staff, city volunteers, our community partners, the mayor and council will support Dan's efforts to manage and lead our city well into the future. Next year, if I'm still here, I hope to deliver a state of the city that includes only news of accomplishments. No more troubles. We, the city council, and our interim manager, David Klein, have actively addressed the problems, and Dan will continue to do so. Thank you for your time, your understanding, and for your support. Go Newberg. All right, just one other thing, totally off the subject, but do you like this shirt? Like this shirt? All right, so it actually, in Hawaii we call it an aloha shirt. It's not actually known as a Hawaiian shirt, it's an aloha shirt. And I chose this one today because this is a camellia pattern. So there you go. How nice, right? Oh, nice, right? The other thing I want to point out, you like the, and again, this isn't, I'm not going to say now if you like the sweater, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, I'm not doing that. But also, this is one other thing that I think I should point out is, I know you probably can't see this, but this says the City of Newberg, this little pin. And one thing I've done since however, 1 year and 14 days ago, I've tried to wear this virtually every day. And for me, it's a reminder, I guess, to me it's a reminder of my role, but it's also a reminder to anyone else who sees me, they know where I'm from, and I'm proud to say it. So there you go. Anyway, that having been said, questions, folks? All right, seeing none, see you all. Actually, I've got one other thing before the questions. If we could do this, and this is, if everyone who serves or has served on a city committee could please stand, I would greatly appreciate it. Come on up. Come on, come on, come on. Please. Thank you. All right, now I would love to name you all, but I'm afraid I won't be able to. If we have elected officials in the audience, if you all could please stand. Okay, I see Elise, and I see our junior member of the council. There he is, that's Lincoln. And, oh, and Jean Pyrus, here from District 5. And Brad Berry in the back, there we are, District Attorney Brad Berry. Also, now, if I could get everyone who is a city employee to please stand, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, and now, questions?
Can't hear you, Julie, you gotta wait.
We also have a representative here from Suzanne Bonamici's office.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Hi, Rick.
Hi.
I'm a citizen of Newberg for 50 plus years, and I attended last night the Martin Luther King. And one of the things our speaker stressed was that you have to have good policies, and then you have to carry through on your policies. And he sort of made a remark to you on, I bet you're changing a lot of your policies. So I'm curious, if it's allowed, to know what kind of policies are being changed.
All right, yes, well, thank you, Marge, thanks very much for the question. All right, well, some of the things that have happened, actually, today we did hear, and it was announced that our current Human Resource Director has resigned. And we now have Allison Seiler is our interim, and actually we had some time to spend with her over the weekend on Saturday. The department heads and the city council did a goal setting session. And Allison, I can frankly say, is fantastic. Her comments were very heartfelt, and she spoke directly to the subject that we're talking about. In the goal setting, one of the things, and I mentioned this actually yesterday evening, is that one of the things that, once you get sued for discrimination in hiring, you probably need to do something. As you said, for the council, one of those things is diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, is very important for all of us. And we haven't brought it out to the departments as to how that might be rolled out, but that will certainly be a part of our efforts. Does that answer your question, sort of? Yeah. Oh, well, there will be a whole series of policies, and a lot of it also will have to do with culture, honestly, and I think that will be one of Dan's major focuses will be culture in the building and that kind of thing. But as to specific personnel policies, I don't know that I've gone that deep into it as yet, but thank you.
What are some of the major projects coming down the pike for this year?
Right. Well, what I can give you is, and I don't know that I brought the list. That actually on Saturday, what we did is the department heads all came in and gave their projections for their goals for the coming year. And then from that, we wanted to put overarching goals for the council itself. And again, I'm going to probably actually be sending news to some of the city staff who may not have heard of this yet, but some of the things that we came up with out of that session was first to get through the troubles, first and foremost probably. Second on the list, and if I forget anything, at least let me know. Yeah, DEI, as I said, diversity, equity, and inclusion is hugely important, I believe, to us. The idea of affordable and workforce housing is very important and continues to gain steam as to the idea of actually our employers having places for their employees to live. Retaining and attracting employees has gotten significantly more difficult. Let's see. Sustainability, yes, sustainability is one. And sustainability, not so much even in the notion of climate change necessarily, but sustainability is how can we be more efficient in the services that we're delivering as well. And a lot of public works actions will take place on that subject. This also, as an aside, happens to be something that's very, very much of interest to our youth these days, and we're hearing more and more from them. And for me, if we can engage the youngsters in something that they're particularly interested in, rather than something that we think they should be interested in, then that will probably be more effective. So those are the main areas that we'll be focusing on. And then, of course, it's, the big projects will continue on and on. Tax increment, the other one, of course, tax increment financing. In fact, I sent a note to Doug and a few others that it was mentioned that the word urban renewal, or the phrase urban renewal, is not always particularly well received, I guess particularly for those of us who are children of the 60s and 70s. Urban renewal did not always have the best connotation, so we'll go with tax increment financing. That will hopefully give us a way. Although John Bridges, who is the chairman of the committee, is shaking his head on that, so we'll have to.
We're not going to lead with that.
All right, well, that's not the lead. That is true. That's no. Don't mention children of the 60s and 70s. That's probably not good. But anyway, the idea of that is revitalization of the mill property. Again, that's something we're constantly searching. Doug, I know, has gotten various inquiries from potential buyers. So keep your fingers crossed that we do get a potential buyer and we can get that property redeveloped. This urban renewal will allow us to do some needed improvement downtown, which, as you all know now, with the bypass in, a road diet and the like, would be fantastic to see downtown.
I'm concerned about Mr. Klein. Where does he go now? Was he a city employee before, and does he go back to the same position now?
Right. No, the city, David Klein, actually, as of, I imagine, February 28th or 29th, will be heading to the sunny beaches of Mexico, actually. He's retired, so he does this as a short-term interim gig, and so no, his job is nearly done here. David came in, and when we interviewed him to be the interim city manager, he said, I have one job, basically, and that is to find you a new city manager. And he's been here since July and has done that. And while he's done that, he's also been the city manager in a fairly trying time. So David will be sunny and warm in Cancun here very soon. So, Yes, it is a happy ending, that's right. Well, hopefully he'll visit on occasion, so there you go.
Hi, Rick.
Hello.
Sorry, guys. I just want to say thank you. I can't imagine how hard your job has been in the last year, and your clear passion for our community and our kids, and that you still love Newberg, and you still wear your pin, and you still go to Fred Meyer and all those different places, speaks to your commitment to our city, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Kristen, I'd just like to say back at you, my friend.
Can you tell us something about Dan's background?
Yes, I can try. All right, so Dan is coming to us from Routt County, Colorado, and that's Steamboat Springs area, so a resort ski type area. Routt County, I think, has got a population, it's very an expansive land with about the same population as we have here. Prior to that, he was in Fort Collins, Colorado. Fort Collins, actually, I did not know this until recently, is considered the best run city in Colorado. So he's got great experience, a couple of young kids, I think they're 12 and 10, and so he and his wife and kids will be relocating here. So, and if you didn't meet him, I think Dan's got a very calm demeanor. I think he's professional, and I think we'll do a great job for us. honestly, this will be a sort of a backhanded compliment to Dan, so I'll have to share this with him at some point, but we asked him, point blank, the council asked, would you move to Newberg? It's for everyone to know, it's not a requirement in the charter. You don't have to live in Newberg if you're the city manager. So he said, would you? And he said, well, I've got 2 young children. They've both been identified as being talented and gifted, and so I really have to be considerate of where they go to school. And so we've looked at other places like Sherwood and Wilsonville, and all of us tried not to growl as we heard it. And at first my initial reaction, and some of the rest of us, and particularly counselors that went to school here, or sent our kids to school here, in fact, I tried to defend the school, saying, oh no, but my kids are fine. They went to school and went off and did stuff, and all's well. And I think we got a little agitated. But later, thought about it, and probably the thing that I enjoyed most about that comment, or later thought about, is that he was being absolutely honest. And to me, I think in this line of work, and probably any line of work, honesty is absolutely the most important thing, and I think that speaks to character. So.
My name is Ken Larson. I'd like to know if you have any initiatives for in 2020 for the homeless problem. I personally went to school with 5 of them, and it breaks my heart. I think one person homeless in Newberg is way too many. And I'd just like to know what you're going to do in 2020 about that.
Yeah, thank you for that, and I'm sorry to hear about your classmates. It's an issue. Actually, I got a call, oddly enough, yesterday with someone asking whether, and I don't know, we could ask the police probably know better, or at least might know better than I. The question was, are we seeing an uptick here in the recent past, in the last month or two, of homeless folks on our streets? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But one of the initiatives that we have taken, and again, Elise Yarnell Holloman is with Providence and very involved with that, but one, we've been speaking with the municipal court judge to try to create a community court. So oftentimes what happens, and the judge explained this to me, is that people that the police know are continually being trespassed out of one place to the next, and then they get to the court system. And then to the court system they go, and they probably, at some point or other, they see the district attorney. But there's the thought that, is there a way here locally to provide a court that would actually serve to provide a connection to services as well? Again, as mentioned, my day job, I work for Habitat for Humanity, so I'm familiar with the issues of housing anywhere and the houseless. But again, the difficulty is making sure that we can connect to services and that those services actually carry through. We're very fortunate now to have Providence here locally. They are working on a specific initiative out at their campus, and we hope we can push through. Just as an aside, the high school is also built now nearly to. They're finishing a second tiny home that'll be sited up at North Valley Friends. But it takes a collective action, actually. There could be some argument. McMinnville, not too long ago, as you probably know, enacted a camping ban. And I know some of the rest of us in the community were wondering, when you put a ban in one spot, it's going to pop up somewhere else, and it's going to be that. So whether we've started to see that or not, I don't know. But the best quote I think I probably recently heard of this, and some of you might have heard me say this before, was the Mayor of Gresham. So he spoke about their problem that was basically, Portland was saying, the east side of the city is nice, and go ahead and check out the good folks in Gresham. So they had a terrible problem. What they did, and what I think, at least in my opinion, they enacted what they call a program where it's compassionate enforcement. So again, if rules, laws are being violated, but there needs to be compassion with it. Because again, if we just say move along, where are people going to move to? And again, without any kind of services, that won't be.
Related to Ken's question, in, and also your background, Rick. Affordable housing, what new initiatives are underway? And I think everybody was hopeful with electing you as mayor that you'd bring some background and expertise to that important issue.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Right now, by last count, I think, Doug, at the last count I think I had was 37 or 38, 37 initiatives that we've currently got that we hope to enact over a period of time to slowly address the issue of affordable housing. You know, unfortunately, Rick, as you know, there's no silver bullet, there's no one answer that's going to solve it, but I think we have to take steps to continue to try to further it. Particularly on one of the issues that's got my attention more, and I'm cautiously optimistic, is this concept of workforce housing. And for those who aren't familiar, that's generally people from 80 to 120% of median income. So it's not that people Habitat serves, we serve 25 to 60%. So it's people that are working. It's, you know, first year teachers, it's probably first year firefighters, police officers that are looking for, or people at ADEC. And they're looking for a place to live. What the employers are saying more now than I've ever heard before is, again, I said this before, they can't attract or retain staff. And this goes whether it's at the Allison, Friendsview, Marquee, whoever it is, they just simply can't retain staff. So people are driving further and further and staying in their jobs shorter and shorter periods of time. We had a meeting last week, I believe it was last week, where we had a member from Regional Solutions, the governor's office, was there. So was SEDCOR, the development organization in Salem, and somebody from Oregon Housing and Community Services Division, talking specifically about workforce housing. Last year, probably a year ago now, we did submit an application. This was Mike Googler's project we're going to try to do behind Rite Aid for workforce housing. Unfortunately, I think there were 35 applications statewide, and we finished 14th. But the basic concept of it is, much like, you know, timber camps, you know, when they had to, you know, construct housing as well, or schools, or whatever it might be. And just as a total aside, and I've said this before too, I actually grew up in workforce housing. I spent a number of years when I lived in the Philippines on a plantation, but that's neither here nor there. But the idea is that the employers would have a stake in providing housing for their workers. So this meeting was to try to get that initial sort of momentum going. But I think there are a number of the employers, we've just started, this first one was just with the long-term care folks and the retirement communities, but then we'll probably go next to the manufacturers and see what kind of appetite they have. Ideally, say you construct a 50-unit apartment complex. I would love to see it that 40 of those units were spoken for by employers in this town. And if they needed to provide a subsidy to retain their employees, that would be a part of the rent or part of their compensation. So that's probably one of the most exciting is work, to me anyway, is workforce housing. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you again for your interest. Don't be strangers. If you see something that could be improved, send us a note, drop us a line at rick.rogers@newbergoregon.gov. And really, the other thing is, and I do want to sort of close on this, that, you know, as I said before, 136 full-time equivalents go to work every day for your benefit. So please remember that. Give the officers a wave when you see them. Give the folks, you know, give the public works folks a wave when you see them, because they're working for your benefit. So thank you. Thanks so much.